7 Octoberz here. Welcome to another episode of Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue, the home of hip hop and horror, where we talk about hip hop, horror, and everything in between. And today I have a really dope guest. I want to shout out Manny from the Movie Manny podcast. He kind of introduced me to Edda kind of via email. He's just like, I just had her on the show, and she's really dope. She's also like a horror fan. We didn't really get to touch on that, but I think she would be a great guest on your show. And so I was like, oh yeah, send over the info, and I hit you up, Edda, and thank you so much for accepting my request to have you on, because I think it's really dope what you're doing. And I'll give a brief intro of like what you do, and then obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong or if I misspoke. But you're the founder of, is it La Femme Underground International Film Festival, and then it rebranded to Femtasia Fest, correct?
That's right. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, and when he told me that, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know about this. It's like a whole other world for me. But we were just talking off screen and how we bumped into each other actually in person, like just maybe like a couple weeks ago now, or like a week ago at the Film Noir down in LA, right?
Yeah. No, it was great. Running into you, I was like, oh, you have a very familiar face. And then I didn't realize we had a mutual friend in common as well. But I guess it makes sense, cinephiles are going to go watch some nitrate film. And it was great getting to see you for a second. It was very crowded, so cinema is very much alive and interested in classic cinema, which is great. And it was a great film as well. It was I watched so many of the noir films, so I think the one we watched was Nightmare Alley, right, on Nitrate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is the original one. And if anyone gets a chance to go see Nitrate, watch it now before it's too late, because each year that passes by, the film that you see will be more deteriorated. And this is kind of the closest you can get to the original picture negative, and which is pretty amazing. So you're kind of watching an artifact that was watched when sometimes almost like 100 years ago. I don't remember what date Nightmare Alley came out in 1930s, something like that. But
Yeah,
or
1930
40s.
something.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, it was great seeing you there, and also I guess a good plug for people to go watch Nitrate when they can, because it's an incredible experience. And some say that if you watch it, you kind of see the silver highlight crystals, like the silver of the nitrate. And so I'm always like on the lookout, but I think I get too immersed in the story that I don't pay attention to that as much. But yeah, it was great seeing you and here today as well.
Yeah, no, I was cool. Like I said, it's a little small world, maybe like you said, in like the film community too. Because like I said, our common friend, shout out to Beth from KPBS. She's the one that actually put me on to going to that movie, because she was like, we went to WonderCon, and then right after she's like, do you want to leave early, and then we can go catch like a film. It's gonna be a nitrate, like a film like Nightmare Alley. And I was like, oh, like I've only watched like obviously the remake by like Guillermo del Toro, but I never watched the original. And I know like he was a huge fan of the original, but I never got to watch it. And so I was like, oh yeah. And then I had literally just heard about what nitrate was, because I read Silver Nitrate by Celia Moreno Garcia,
Oh
and
yes.
she put me onto it. And I love that book. That
Yeah,
book
I
is
can't wait.
amazing. Like go
Yeah, I
ahead.
can't wait to read that one. I'm a big fan of her work. I actually watched or read what is it, Mexican Gothic, and that's the book that kind of
I have to
made
read
me.
that one.
It's so good. It's a different. I think it's like takes place more in like the turn of the century, but it has like a nice, very gothic feel. It reminds me a lot of who was the writer, Daphne, the one who wrote Rebecca, and then a lot of Hitchcock movies were inspired by that author. Um, oh my gosh, I'm
Yes,
blanking
I know who you're
on
talking
her.
about. I just went
Yeah,
down the rabbit hole. I forgot her last name. But when
yeah,
I was doing
it's
women, because I was highlighting women in horror, and she came up, I was like, oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that all these like Hitchcock films were
Yeah,
inspired
it's
by her books.
incredible. I went down that hole when I was watching. I went to go watch, funny enough, Rebecca at the American Cinematheque, and they were doing also a nitrate festival earlier. Daphne Demure, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm terrible at pronunciation, but anyway, yeah, it has like a really nice gothic feel, so you'll enjoy it. And now I have to watch. I need to read Silver Nitrate, because it sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's really. I love the way she writes because I heard Mexican Gothic. Obviously, that's like her famous one. But
Mhm.
I was at the library and like that one was like at the new releases shelf,
Ooh,
and I was like,
perfect.
oh, this like looks like a really dope cover. And then
Mhm.
the it's like the back cover when I read the synopsis, I was like, oh, this sounds like right up my alley. And a lot of the stuff what I like her because obviously she's Canadian Mexican, but she's
Mhm.
Mexican anyways. And so a lot of the stuff that she wrote in her book, like she mentions like Mexican 80s horror films that I kind of grew up on, and it's
Uh-huh.
cool to like see myself in like a character, and I was like, this would be a dope like if they made it into a film. And
Yeah.
so obviously it takes place like of her like being like she restores like films, and they bring up like nitrate, and I was like, oh, I didn't know this was like combustible and like all this stuff. And then Beth, when she told me, I was like, oh, that's crazy, like I want to go see one. Like I know it's like
Yeah.
dangerous, but I was like, it's really cool to see, like you said, a film that probably hasn't been seen on the big screen in a long time, and
Mhm.
just like the I don't know, like the quality of it. And it was like back in the day, so it's pretty awesome. So I was like, yeah, I'll go. And then it's Nightmare
Yeah.
Alley too. I've never seen the original, and I loved it. I loved the old school. It actually became my favorite, like the original.
Yeah, yeah, and I haven't seen the remake yet, so I'm like on the other end. I'll have to switch and watch the Guillermo del Toro one next.
Yeah, yeah, you have to definitely check it out. And kind of that leads to my first question here is like, where did your like love for horror like start, and also filmmaking, because you're also like a filmmaker. So where did those two like kind of cross, and where did it all start?
Yeah. So I grew up in San Diego. And I grew up with like a single mom, and we were kind of low income. And so we would go often to like Goodwills and just like buy tapes there. And oftentimes, because my mom mostly spoke Spanish, she would just kind of go off the cover. And as you may already know, like, Mexican culture is so deeply entwined with horror and with monsters, and like that's just kind of part of like the folklore. And so my mom would always select the films. She's not a horror fan either, which is kind of the funny part. But she would choose like VHSs that had like kind of like a adventure monster quality to them, and oftentimes they ended up being horror. And so we would watch those because we didn't have cable. We watched those over and over and over again. And I think one of the first films that I watched that kind of like put me on that path towards horror is oh gosh, what Nightbreed. And so Nightbreed was kind of like
Oh, I
the
love Nightbreed.
it's so good. But imagine I'm like 8 years old watching this movie with like my family, and somehow my mom thought it was fine for us to watch this. Like, it's an incredibly graphic movie, you know? It's like, it's pretty
Yeah,
terrifying if you think about it watching as a kid. But the practicals,
yeah,
the special effects are just so well done. And I think what I really enjoyed about horror and just kind of like any film that has like a thriller or like fantasy element to it is that you don't really need to speak English to understand the plot. For the most part, most of
it's
those
true.
stories are action driven, they're visual driven, and so you can just enjoy the film and understand for the most part what's going on. Whereas if you watch any other genre, you really have to keep explaining like what the plot is if someone doesn't understand what's going on. So it was a really great way for us to be able to watch films together. And we did that often just because, that was kind of our centerpiece, was just to watch movies at home, because we couldn't really afford going out to go watch anything in the movie theaters. We really, didn't go out to go do other activities. Although, living in San Diego, it is a tourist town, so you kind of can go any, like, we could take the bus to like Balboa Park, and then you got that element of activity. So it was either walking or watching movies. And so I kind of began there. And then, but funny enough, I was like very terrified of scary movies for a while, up until maybe I was
Mm.
18. And then I think the movie that switched it for me, from being terrified of horror movies to just really being enthralled
Mm-hmm.
by them, was it wasn't until I got to college and I got like a free ticket to watch Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. And it was so, I don't know if you
I love
watched
that movie.
it. It's yeah,
Yes.
it's really quirky. It's fun. It's kind of like a campy horror. So it kind of is like a nice gateway film to like not be completely terrified, but it has like a very serious tone to it, and so it has a really good story. And at that point, I think it switched off for me because I think I had been quite scarred and terrified with Child's Play and with what's the other one? Let's see. Uh oh, Evil Dead.
Nightmare on
Like
Elm Street.
watching all those like very young and just like not
Yeah.
understanding what exactly is happening except the just very disturbing visuals. And I actually used to have I hated doll. I loved Barbies, but I hated dolls, like the baby dolls. And my mom was just so
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with like baby dolls, like as like a gift. And she got me one
Yeah.
that was like literally the height of Chucky, and it was like a 4 foot doll, and it had the creepiest eyes. It would open and close. And my brother was super into horror. He was into like zombie movies. He loved Child's Play. He loved like any of those kind of grotesque things that I was still getting adjusted to at that age. And he got so scared himself that we convinced ourselves that this doll was alive, and we gagged it and we like tied it up. We threw it in the bathroom in the shower. We put all these chairs and like barricaded it. And this is probably ages like 7 through 10. My brother's older, and
Okay.
so it was like after that my mom got rid of the doll because she realized like I hated the doll and it was just causing a lot of fear because my brother would take this doll and
Mm-hmm.
actually have it like standing up with its arms out. So my room, to turn on the light, I had to turn on like it's like one of those fan lights, that you go to the center of the room to turn it on.
Yeah.
And so I had to go through like a very dark space and then like pull this thing. I was too short, so it was either I pulled the fan or I pulled the light, and it was like a very terrifying like Russian roulette of which one are you gonna pull first. And my brother would take like an opportunity to just like he would like have the doll just place standing up. So he kind of set up. He was very patient with it. He waited till like that was like the first scare, and then so I was living horror,
Yeah.
I guess. And then the second scare is that he like waited under my bed for like an hour until like I was asleep and kind of had like a
Mm-hmm.
sense of like everything's fine. And as soon as I would get up to go use the restroom or something, he took his hand out and he would like pull me underneath the bed, and it was the most terrifying thing. So I think like he would really mess with me like growing up, and I think horror because of that was like a little bit complicated for me. But I think that
Yeah.
like I think the thrill of it probably did stick with me, and it kind of is nostalgic for those many reasons, even if it was terrifying at that moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't until I got into college that I really started diving into it. And as a filmmaker, it was just like a perfect medium to be able to experiment with lighting, experiment with tone, experiment with no dialogue, because so much of it, like I was saying before, is so action driven. And it's like a perfect
Yeah.
way to create a story, because I wanted to create stories that my family could understand. And I think that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of where I went in that direction. But then eventually I started becoming more of like an experimental horror filmmaker. And so I did a lot of like hand processing, shooting on film. And so then I guess at that point my family started to not understand the material again. But um but
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the direction I went in, like what got me into horror. And obviously living next to Comic Con in San Diego, growing up next to it, you get to see all these panels. You get to be exposed to all these different films that are coming out, and so that also drove my love for horror even more because I got to see it in action. And
Yeah.
like I'd save up my money when I was like 16 years old working at the San Diego Zoo so I could go to Comic Con and go see the panel on like what was it, The Grudge. And so like the
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like that was really exciting for me growing up, and it just kind of grew from there. And that's kind of yeah, that's kind of how where my love for horror came from. And it's for filmmaking, it really came from, I was actually very shy, quiet child growing up, and
Okay.
so I was given the opportunity to make. They're like, you could either present in front of the class or you could make a movie and then you could present that. And I was like, if I make a movie, I don't have to be in front of the class. Like, there's the stress is just like removed. This is amazing. So my best friend had like VHS camcorder, which is really outdated at that point because I grew up was in high school. I was from 2002 to 2005, so we had digital camcorders. But we just had this like it was huge. It was like probably the size of like our bodies. Like it was this huge VHS like camera that had to be plugged into the wall. And so we had these extension cords going from the house out into the street, and this was like it's extension cord after extension cord, so we could shoot outside. And
Yeah.
so like we just started making like films, and we didn't realize that our humor was actually like being picked up by people. Like when we showed the films, people were actually like being really receptive to it and like thinking that it was like
Yeah.
silly and funny. And I was like, whoa, and it was like no one's ever thought that about us. And so it was kind of nice, like we were able to show our personalities in this way, and then avoiding having to do the the like oral presentation. So it came from that, really. It's just like this complete avoidance to
Cool.
wanting to
What
be
was the
sort of
movie about?
I think we had to do what is it? It was actually like an ancestry project, and I you had to like talk about your ancestors and like where they came from. But my friend had no idea, so we made up everything like about her like ancestry project. And so because of that, we really had a lot of fun with like costumes and like spaces, and we were able to kind of borrow like the neighbors. They had like a boat parked outside, and they let us film on top. It was like a decommissioned boat. It wasn't like saleable, but they just had it parked outside, and they let us
Yeah.
just like shoot on top of this boat. and and so that
That's
worked
cool.
really well. So yeah, it was from ancestry, and then just like any project that came afterward that we were allowed to do anything. Like we definitely we had some French. We took French, which I still don't know a word of French. I don't know that I learned anything in that class. But anyway, um, like we had to shoot things in French, and so we'd make like horror French movies and like to the best of our abilities, and like fantasy French movies. And I still have them in VHS somewhere. But it's like, yeah, you just see us reading from the script because we weren't really fluent. But anyway, that's kind of where my love for horror and filmmaking came from. So sorry, long story.
No, no, that's really cool, and I like that you said that about like how it's like the language is not really a barrier with like horror films, because I can kind of relate to that because the reason I fell in love with horror was I kind of like credit it to my grandma, may she rest in peace, but she was like super like Catholic, but then I was like watching some TikTok or something where they said that it's funny how like especially like in the like Latino or like the Mexican culture to be specific is like we all over here like oh like religious and stuff like that, but then we like believe in like La Llorona, like shamans,
Uh-huh.
and all these different things, and it's kind of like it's part of like the horror culture. Just they
Yeah.
don't see it that way, but
Hmm.
like my grandma didn't know English either, and she was the one we would just watch like either whatever was on TV, and back then it was like Canal 12 or
Uh-huh.
57, and they had like the black and white like Mexican horror films, or even just
Uh-huh.
like the 80s one, because
Hmm.
that slasher era also made it to Mexico, and so I was watching like Pedrito Fernandez, like
Oh
Pánico
yeah.
en la Montaña,
Hmm. Hmm.
and like like I love those films because I grew up watching them, and so I think from there, and then I kind of moved on to like the American horror films, which is like
Uh-huh.
Child's Play. I think I had
Uh-huh.
my experience is the opposite of yours. Like
Uh-huh.
I was like I was obsessed with it. I just like that it was so cool. Like I don't know like what it was. Like I kind of clown about my mom because my mom nowadays she's like more scared of stuff. But before, like we would watch like all these horror films like on Fridays. We would go to like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video
Oh,
and
nice.
just
Yes.
pick a movie, and I would always just pick like the horror films because they had like the dopest covers.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so my mom's like, "How come you love horror?" And I was like, "Well, it was your guys' fault. Like you guys would just let us watch
Yeah.
these freaking films. Like there was like no like really filter."
Uh-huh.
And then now like the funny part is like they would let us watch certain things like Child's Play and all these things, but then like I remember from Dusk Till Dawn, I'm like a huge fan. I have like Satanico back here.
Oh, nice.
And I remember that they rented it and they put us in the room, and I was one of those, if they want to like, as a kid, you're like, oh, I want to see it because they're not letting me see it. It must be like cool. and I want to like break the rules, right? And so I remember I pretended I had to go to the kitchen to go get like a snack or something, and
Oh,
it was like literally they were watching it when the bar scene happens, where like
oh my God. That's
the strippers and like turning into vampires.
the
And my mom's like, "Close your eyes, don't look." And I was like so intrigued, and I remember I never watched it obviously because I was like maybe like 7, 8 or something. And so then as in like yeah my teenage years, that's when I was like, oh, I'm gonna finally get to watch the whole thing.
uh-huh.
But I think it's just like I don't know what it was, like maybe the fact that it was like something you shouldn't be watching, and
Uh-huh.
just like the storytelling. Like I was obsessed with it because my abuelita would tell us like leyendas, like
Uh-huh.
Mexican legends, as a kid. And I don't know, like I for some reason I loved it, like the storytelling, like the aspect of like being like afraid. I don't know, I loved it, and so ever since then I was like I just fell in love with like the genre, and so I
Mhm.
can relate to the fact like you said, like it doesn't you don't really have to understand what they're even saying, because even as a kid, like there's no way I understood like the dialogue or what they
Uh-huh.
were talking about. I just thought it was cool, like a freaking doll that's possessed and like this
Yeah.
like voodoo stuff going on. It was like it was really
Mhm.
dope, and so I can definitely like relate to you as far as like once the love for horror kind of came for you later. For me, it kind of started like super young,
Mhm.
but I think I can see where it came for you as far as like because your brother kind of would kind of bully you a little bit, so it's
Yeah.
like it's a whole
Yeah,
different
yeah.
like like it kind of like build more on the fear, and then afterwards, like you said, like you kind of grew to love it.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
that's really awesome though that you didn't give up on it, because sometimes people
Yeah.
like talk. I feel like I get really what's the word I'm looking for, like I get kind of like when somebody talks bad about the horror genre, I kind of get like really like not mad, but like I was like, you don't really like understand
Uh-huh.
it. Like it's not like just killing, because obviously that's some of the
Yeah.
famous ones,
Mhm.
but I think you have to like dig into, because like I said, the storytelling. There's deeper meanings. There's
Mhm.
creative ways to tell stuff that's going on in society,
Mhm, mhm,
with the
mhm.
history, and so I was like, that's why I was like, I get sometimes like really like resistant to people when they say like I don't like horror, like I rather watch this and that, and like I love
Yeah.
all the other genres too, but horror for some reason I feel like it's that ugly stepchild, and maybe like me being like a brown Mexican woman like who's never like fit in kind of, sometimes I was like that's like the genre that it never fit in either, and so maybe I gravitated towards that for that reason.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I feel like horror has the most loyal audiences there is out there. Like, I've become so involved with the horror community since then. And now as I'm thinking about it, I guess my gateway was like all the Tim Burton kind of like gothic material growing up, and then that kind of like
Yeah.
led me to that direction. But, whenever you go to like screenings at like Beyond Fest here in LA, to what's it called, the New Beverly, who do a lot of genre films. You go to like Son of Monster Palooza, Midsummer Scream,
Yeah.
Screamings. You go to all those places, and it's like you go to it enough, you start recognizing people. You're like, oh, you're like a regular, and it's really cool because it's like
Yeah.
even though it may not be necessarily recognized in other fields for necessarily being like high, like not being highbrow enough or whatever, I feel like it's like
Yeah.
so like people are so devoted to horror. Like it's so great seeing like if a horror film plays, most oftentimes the theater sells out, like for like
That's true.
specific screenings and stuff. So more so than other films, so it's kind of great, and I think it's a good place for like, I guess as you were saying, like the people who feel like misfits in society to be able to come together and like find your
Yeah.
family, your horror family, and they're the kindest people I know out there, which is kind of really funny because it's like
That's
the
true.
opposite of what you imagine. You think horror
Yeah.
people are like maybe unapproachable and tough, and maybe that's what they look like on the outside, but like they're actually very kind, and they like some of them could be very bubbly people as well. And it's like, wow, this is like such a great culture. So it's nice to know that, I'm like seeing your like background, really awesome, like memorabilia, and I wish mine was more exciting, but but
That's
yeah, it's awesome to see like this is the stuff that like touched people's lives in different ways, and it's like goes back to the idea of like the monster being like like if you think about Frankenstein, like the monster being
yeah.
that like misunderstood creature who is seen as like the other, as like the one we should fear, when in fact it's actually very kind and like misunderstood creature who's just trying to make their like way around the world. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, it's, yeah, there's so many great like juxtapositions between it. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have friend because I moved him. He used to be up here, but I moved him over there. But yeah, like same thing. Like I feel like maybe Mary Shelley was talking about women. I don't know. Like maybe
Yeah,
she made
yeah.
it as a monster. Who knows? Like you can
Uh-huh.
have it like so many. Anybody can interpret it so many ways. But yeah,
Mhm.
because I'm like the real monsters were the people that freaking like ended up like wanting to torch him. So
Yeah.
I mean, um, but yeah, I love Frankenstein too. And again, like Mary Shelley, like one of the first pioneers to like create like the first monster sci-fi.
Mhm.
So and that's why kind of like the theme of this, for me, like that's why I wanted to have you on because like about films, you have your film festival, and I do want to talk about that too, like,
Mhm.
um, because having that is like a big deal too, like being like a woman, and
Mhm.
also being like like Latina is like so many different things
Mhm.
that we don't see that as often, and I thought that was really dope that you're doing that. And I just want to obviously like take the time to like, I know I don't know you that well, but still like just to give you your flowers because
Oh, thank
that's
you.
really awesome to see that there's like a film festival for like for women, and just in different, because I know you guys don't only focus on the horror genre, but you guys do a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
But in this episode, obviously I do want to focus on the horror part, and I wanted to ask you like what's like some maybe like some dope like horror films that you showed at your film festival that you feel like were really underrated. Maybe
Yeah.
you can name maybe like I don't know if you have like a top five, or what would be some of those films?
Um, yeah, so it's kind of funny because I was actually looking back at kind of our festival screenings, the last kind of, I mean, how many years has it been? Since 2016. So almost 10 years, not quite there. And what
Yeah.
was really awesome seeing is that, like, the films that we showed in our earlier years, the people who kind of came out of that, because we usually show first time filmmakers, we want to give opportunities to people who don't often get shown elsewhere for whatever reason. And like
Mm-hmm.
they're like just these badass people just working in the industry now. And like one of them was I think this was like one of the first horror films that got, not first horror films, but one of the ones that kind of really resonated with me. They're all my babies in a way. I love programming them all,
Yeah.
and I feel like they're all like really
Yeah.
amazing. But the one that kind of sticks out was from filmmaker Prano Bailey Bond. And when she submitted to us a short called Video. It's called Nasty, and it's on Video
Okay.
Nasties, and it's kind of like this really great kind of exploring the idea of video nasties, but also kind of going off of the idea that like the characters in the video come to life and they become like these zombie creatures. And so it's like really
Okay.
wonderful like graphics and special effects, especially for like when you don't have a big budget. It's kind of amazing. And what's really great about her stuff is that it really plays around with kind of like the giallo lighting of red and blues, and so it's very
I
like
love that.
aesthetically it's very beautiful. And I think these
Hmm.
like 2 years ago, I could be wrong on the time frame, she made her first feature film called Censor, and that got picked up by I
Oh,
think
I
maybe
watched that
Shutter.
one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, and I think it's like
Yeah, that
this
was
is her
really dope.
first feature film, and like it's incredible because like they like if you think like, okay, this is her first feature film, like she has so much, if she gets more opportunity, she's going to be able to make a lot of really great and incredible horror films. And her short had that quality. And she also, funny enough, sent us another one later called Short, or Stop, Short Stop, one of the two. And it's about like she really plays around with like misogyny and like kind of giving people their comeuppance when they do things that are not kosher. And so the story kind of, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but basically it's about like it's a very short, like probably 5 or 6 minutes, and it's about a man who then gets there's revenge placed upon him for his actions. I'll just say that because some of the stuff might be
Yeah.
too graphic to go beyond that. Um, and then let's see, who else? Our first year we had a film called Lovesick. They got sent to us, and that one's more like fantasy, like love story fantasy, but the producer, co-producer, but also actress in it. Let me see if I could just like pull up the name really quick because I'm. Can you
Okay.
still hear me? Good. Um,
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Hopefully you can still see my picture. I'm like just kind of scrolling through the name because I just wrote
Yeah, no,
this
you're
down.
good. I feel like some of these indie films, though, like indie and shorts, are really, really amazing. Like I've seen, they're better than some of these mainstream movies coming
Oh
out.
my gosh, yeah, they're fantastic. And it's like just incredibly like just oh, her name is Maggie Levin. And so
Okay.
she actually went on to direct VHS 99. And so it's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
awesome that to see that like those are kind of the projects that oh, there you are. I was like, "Where's the tab?"
Yeah,
Those are the
yeah.
kind of projects that people went on to do, and they kind of started with their
Wow.
festivals here. And um, another, if you haven't gone to this one that I like to plug a lot, is that Etheria Film Night is a women's horror
Okay.
film
I've been to
festival.
one like before the pandemic, but I need to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
again.
No, they're incredible, and Heidi Honeycutt, who's one of the co-founders, is has just written a book on women in horror that's going to come out in August. It's very exciting
Yeah, I
to
saw that. I want to
see
get a
that.
copy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So super excited, but yeah, Ethereal Film Night has been like just the most amazing kind of like mentor since day one with us. They've been really kind and like
Yeah.
kind of teaching us the ropes of how to navigate the film festival world, and not just that, but they have like incredible like women in horror who kind of started there and now have made their name in huge and bigger productions. Like another one that comes to mind that didn't go to our film festival, but I was a moderator for it for the Blumhouse. Who was it? It was on like it was directed by Gigi Guerrero, and it was on like
Was it Bingo Hell? Oh no.
you did do that one, yes, but good
I
like
love that one.
you know your filmmakers. It was the
Yeah.
one on like American citizenship. Maybe it's called
Oh, I went
America.
to see that one actually at the Theria. Yeah, it was
Oh
from
really?
Into
I
the
was the moderator.
Darkness. Oh, really? How did I?
Yeah,
I don't remember. Oh my god, I have a bad memory. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
No,
was
no.
at that one. I went to the Egyptian theater. That was the first time
Oh
I ever
yeah,
been
yeah.
there.
Oh, how funny! I was a moderator for that one. Yeah, it was called like America or so. Oh my God, it's funny. Like I should know.
Yeah,
Uh,
but it was a series that I was like into at Hulu. It was called Into the Dark, and I
uh-huh.
forgot the name of the. But it was like Marta Gareda was in it,
Hmm.
right? Is that the one you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it had
That
like
was really dope. Yeah.
what is it? Barbara Crampton was in it as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
Barbara Crampton. I actually bumped into her into the in the bathroom, and I like
oh
said hi to
really?
her. I was trying to get her on the podcast like back
That's
then, but I was
awesome.
like, I still haven't got her yet, just yet.
Oh man. Well, I mean that's kind of like pretty awesome. I mean I feel
I took a
like
picture with her actually. I have pictures of like me with Gigi and like Barbara and Marta Gareda because my mom pushed me because I'm super introverted too, even though it looks
uh
like I'm not, but I am. And my mom was like, just go say hi to them and maybe try to get them on the podcast. I remember I gave them stickers or something like on the
yeah.
podcast. That was when I was barely starting out in like 2019.
Oh man, that's pretty
That was a
awesome.
good one. That's
But
cool.
if
I
you're
don't even know. What a small world again. I even
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't even
I
realize
kind
it.
of
I didn't put two and
find
two together.
I do right. I'm trying to find what Into the Dark. Oh my God, how come I don't remember it?
Yeah, I think it was Into
Um,
the Dark or something. It was a series.
yeah. Well, anyway, it was. We'll edit this maybe in post.
Well,
It is something
we
like
were prone to meet
America.
somehow.
I know, right? This is pretty awesome. But yeah, I love her stuff. Also love what is it? She also did a short in like Hispanic Satanic or Satanic
Oh,
Hispanics.
Satanic Hispanics.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So she did a short in that as well.
the
But
Nahuales, right? It was the Nahuales one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but anyway, so I guess yeah, that's kind of cool seeing that a lot of our alumni that are start off then are
Yeah.
kind of growing up, grow like have done a lot since then. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think some of some other ones. Oh gosh, it's funny because I just now like was looking
That's
at the
pretty a
name.
lot. I mean, it's you said almost like what 7 years, 7, 8 years
Yeah,
ago.
it's just
So it's
2000.
a lot
Yes.
to remember.
Yeah, and we usually choose about 25 shorts a year, so you times that
Wow.
times that many years, you kind of
Yeah.
don't remember the specifics, but I remember very clearly like the shorts that we like the stories and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I know that wasn't a really great response to like a list of filmmakers that
No, you're
we've
good.
showcased, um, but yeah, I mean it's usually we'll screen people whose material just has like a really good aesthetic, really good sense of story, really they kind of really gel well with kind of our idea of strange and unusual and kind of like a psychotropic kind of like being in another world kind of situation. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, not the greatest response, but but
No, it's still good.
yeah.
I got a few gems there like that. I'll probably have to go back now and feel free to send me some links too, and I can always add them to the
Oh, I'm
description
gonna
too if you
send you all
remember
the
later.
links.
I can add some. Yeah, because I want to check them out too, not just for the viewers,
Oh
but like I
yeah,
want to see them
I'll
myself.
send you a list. I'll
Because I'm
send you.
always into all that stuff. Yeah, no, and it's awesome though to see, like you said, like the evolution of like like the people that you've had on, like have their films and giving them a shot because maybe nobody might want to like give them a shot, and
Yeah,
then moving on to like bigger and better things. That's really awesome. And I was gonna ask you that too, like for you, like where do you see like Femtasia Fest going, or do you yourself, because you're also a filmmaker, like do
hmm.
you see yourself just keep going with the festival, or you also want to like start like keep making film, and like where do you see yourself in the next maybe
Yeah.
like 5 to 10 years?
Well, I had to put filmmaking kind of on the back burner, just so that I could focus more on like the curatorial programming side of things. But I find it really rewarding
Mm-hmm.
because you get to meet so many filmmakers, and just being able to have the privilege of seeing all these films annually, in even ones that we can unfortunately not add because of time constraints. Because we also are on a sliding scale kind of model, so we provide waivers and whatnot to filmmakers, and so our budget isn't super big. So if we had a bigger budget, that means we could show more movies because then we'd have more time to be able to rent out like spaces for it. But I mean, I guess just like continuing to have Fantasia grow and develop relationships with more local theaters to kind of have a residency there, and so that we can hopefully be able to show more of those films more often and not just once a year. And that's kind of our hopes for it. And I think so far we've been kind of going off the model of like a traveling film festival, and that's really helped because we've gone to different places. We don't just screen in Los Angeles; we do it in San Diego. We do it, we've done it in Arizona. Our hopes is to continue kind of traveling the Southwest as well, and to be able to find be able to kind of showcase movies that are underrepresented and not often like viewed in spaces that maybe are a little bit more conservative. But those are always very interesting
Yeah.
to go to because the audiences are very it's kind of great response to it. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think our goals is just to continue to grow, keep showing films, and eventually come to a place where we could stay one location and just keep showing all the things that we love and expanding from that. And so eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to continue making films. But unfortunately, my 9 to 5 job it requires a lot of work on my end,
Yeah.
and so it does take a lot of my bandwidth. And I do the film festival on the side just because I'm very passionate about it. We don't really make
Yeah.
any funds or money from it, but we do get the generous
Yeah.
support from like from grants and stuff that we apply to. But it is definitely something that I love and would want to continue doing, and hopefully we can continue growing and yeah, and collaborate with different organizations to be able to expand, people's exposure to these amazing films, which I feel like yeah, not enough people get to see them. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm manifesting for you that it just keeps growing,
Yeah.
and hopefully, like, as I know how it feels. Like I have to work a 9 to 5 too, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, as long as hopefully you make it like your main 9 to 5, that'd be awesome. Because I know how it is when you're a creative, like you want to do more of what you love. But it's awesome that you don't let it deteriorate you from
Mhm.
like not doing it, because sometimes people get stuck in like, I'm tired after my job and I don't want to do anything. So I know it takes a lot, and so it's awesome that you're still keeping it up, doing this and showing films, like I said, that might never see the light of day just because they don't get the opportunity, and they're really like awesome films. Because I speak about it that way just because I know, because I've
Mhm.
seen like really dope films that I've seen at film festivals that I was like, man, like this should be in the big screen. Like the other stuff that sometimes they show on the big screen, I'm like, that should
Yeah,
not be on
yeah.
the big screen. But it's awesome to see that. And when can I know it just passed, but for those listening in, when does the film festival happen? And then are you
Mhm.
coming to San Diego anytime soon? Hopefully,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
what's the plan?
So for the film festival, we've been having it in March, but we might be changing that model a little bit just because we don't want to compete with some other film festivals happening in that time, and just kind of giving them their. We usually used to have it in August, but because of the pandemic, things kind of shifted around our scheduling, and that kind of worked out better. So most likely, the next one's going to be August of next year. But we do have two upcoming events happening. The first one is very exciting. It's going to be on June. Let me see the exact date because I don't know it by heart. So we're gonna be doing on June 15th, which is a Saturday. We're gonna be
Oh, it's my
doing.
birthday.
Oh, really? Oh my God! Happy
Yeah,
birthday! Well, maybe you should come over to see the screening.
I know, right?
So it's actually going to be taking place in San Diego. It's going to be a
Oh, nice. Okay.
collaboration between, um, uh, and I might be missing one because we're still kind of developing those some of the information. So from Film Out San Diego, Popcorn Reef, Film Geeks, and Bonker Ass Cinema and ourselves, we're all kind of coming together to do Grindhouse-a-thon. So we're going to be showing a triple
Oh,
feature
nice.
of different Grindhouse films. And I think the tickets are officially up, but we still have to do like kind of like marketing for it. But it's going to be Class of 1984, Crimes of Passion, and what's the third one? Crimes of Passion, 1984, and Vice Squad. Um, so
Okay, that's
so if
awesome.
you're free on your birthday and you want to watch a triple feature, we're gonna be doing it in
What's
San
the
Diego.
location?
It's gonna be at the Hillcrest Landmark.
Okay,
So that
awesome.
was yeah, and we're really excited about it. Film Out San Diego was the one who kind of found the location and did all the scouting and licensing and all that stuff. So that's going to be our first collaboration. It's really exciting because it's a collaboration with a lot of San Diego-based film
Yeah,
organizations.
everybody from.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
it's
awesome.
and I hope that it can continue going because it really will, I think, strengthen like the movie community and expose them to like what each organization is showing because they're not all showing the same stuff. They're all very unique in the things they show, and I think that's kind of
Hmm.
really exciting to be able to have a like a collaboration. I know Arizona has such a great they actually have a building dedicated to all their film festivals in Arizona. And I was like, what a cool idea that like all the like film and arts like organizations are in a single location. Like, I mean, that costs a lot of money to do something like that, but like there's the concept of these spaces coming
Hmm.
together is just incredibly exciting to me. So we're kind of working on that soon, and the tickets are up on the San Diego Film Out website. But
Okay.
marketing to come, and then the other event, which I can't get too many details of, but I'm very excited about this other one, and it's going to be so close to my heart. It's going to take place in Los Angeles in September in honor of Latinx
Okay.
History Month. I'll just say that we're
Nice.
doing a double feature of horror that is kind of like that has its Latin roots. So
Okay, I'm
we're
excited.
not we're not telling people too many things yet, just because we're kind of settling some things. But I'm so excited for that double feature, and it's going to be at a space that I've been wanting to get for many years, and we were supposed to have our festival take place there actually, but we weren't able to because of pandemic reasons. So you'll see more, you could see more on our Instagram as we post things up, but something is in the works.
Okay.
It's coming on September 20th, which is a Saturday,
Okay.
and it's going to be
Awesome.
really fantastic, and I can't wait for people to watch these because uh, they're badass, in my opinion.
Can you say
So
what era? Can you give a clue of like what era or no?
let me see. I think I'll give the clue that the era for both is roughly
Okay.
60s.
Okay.
There, and I will also say their titles that were often one they're rather
Okay.
rare and very difficult to
Okay.
show, and the other one is very has a huge it represents like a huge like accolade for Mexican
Okay.
cinema.
I'm excited.
I
I'm
guess
already
I'll
gonna
say
put in.
that.
I'm gonna put it in my calendar.
That's what I really love about horror is that it's like it is very sensitive and it's very introspective, and it's like um while it kind of changes your lens, so sometimes you may see horror, but then you see the layers beyond like what that thing is, and there's something really nice about seeing the world a little bit differently in that way. And it's like, like you get some really great laughs from all the
Yeah.
campy stuff as well. Like there's something about, you know, going to go see, I don't know,
Yeah.
like the 1976 maybe version of Christmas, and like, like seeing that with the crowd and the energy, and um it's something where you
Yes.
can feel so intimate with the character and feel like you could be alone with your thoughts, but you're seeing it with a group of people who also have feelings, and you could be both alone but in a crowd at the same time.
Yeah.
And like I think that's what I really, you get these fandoms that come out of it, and these like really people who feel very passionate about cinema who talk about horror, and I think I really like those, like,
Yeah.
there's like a lot of academic to it. There's a lot of like fun, like just special effects. Like it has layers. It has so many layers, and I think that's why I love horror, because it's not just about blood and guts,
Yeah.
but
It
also it's
does.
like that's so fascinating too. Like how do you make those things? Um, but yeah, I guess that's why I love horror and why it really
Yeah.
touched me, because I mean at
Yeah.
UCSD I took when I went to my undergrad, I took class the monstrosity, something like monstrosity of horror or something, and we read a bunch of books that were like monster based books, and yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's just fascinating. It's complex. I think
Hmm.
horror isn't as simple as people think, even if it is just like Paris Hilton and like the wax,
I agree.
house. Like there's more to it, and and
Exactly.
because also
Yeah.
you just think about like all the work
Yeah.
and the goes into those, and people have fun.
Yeah.
I think the best part is people have fun doing those spaces. And so that's what I
I was
love.
gonna
I
say.
love the stories
Yeah.
that come out of it, both from like behind the scenes and then in front of the lens. So that's what I
I agree. Yeah, and I think it's also like another thing, like you said, like to even make it more complex too. Like I was reading about like the fact that it's also good for like your mental health. Like, 'cause I have like anxiety, and I never really thought about it, but I was like, it is calming for me because I just put in a horror movie and then I just feel like I just zone out, like, and it makes me calm. And so I never really thought about it, but I think there's been studies too where they say that like it's good for your mental health. Like some people, I think, like rewatching the same horror film because you know how it ends and you know like the ending, what's gonna happen, and so I was like, oh, that's interesting, and just different things. Yeah, I was like, that's pretty cool. So maybe that's another thing. Like I love all the other genres. Sometimes it's funny because people are like, "Oh, did you watch this comedy?" Like, I don't know if you watch comedies because you're always talking about horror. And I was like, I mean, I watch other genres, but I just feel like I don't know. I could just put on a horror movie and just like zone out. Like just yesterday, I watched this new one called Slay. It's like an LGBT Q plus, like
Yeah.
on Tubi. I don't know if you
I
heard of
think
it.
I
That one was actually it was
is it
freaking
about the
hilarious.
pants or no?
Yeah, they said it's
Is
the
it
one. What?
about like horror pants? Am I like miss? Oh no, no, that's about vampires, right?
No, this is a different one. Yeah, this was about
Oh,
vampires, and it's like pretty much they said it's like a mix of like From Dusk Till Dawn mixed with Tu Wong Fu meets Tu
oh
Wong
my
Fu, and I was like, yeah,
God.
exactly,
I
that's what
need
it is.
to
Because like these
watch
drag queens that like pretty much saved the day. Yeah, it's really I watched it. It's like it's silly. It's a horror comedy, but it's like it had me like just watching like entertained. So I was gonna do a review on that one because that one was like I saw it like maybe a couple days ago on social media, and I was like, what the heck? Like, because all they had to say was From Dusk Till
You're like,
Dawn,
I'm
and
in.
then I was like, I was sold. I was like, and then Tu Wong Fu is like another classic too.
Yeah.
So I was like, Tu Wong Fu meets From Dusk Till
Oh
Dawn. I'm
my
sold.
gosh. I
I'm gonna
have
watch
not watched
it, and
that
it's
one.
free. It's free
Oh
on
my
TV.
gosh, Tubi also
Yeah,
like
yeah. It's an
like
entertaining.
just like plug for Tubi. Tubi has so many
Yes.
great horror films that
Yes.
are like I didn't really, like really just had me immerse myself into their like catalog, and I was like, wow, these are all free. Like you don't even need to
Yes.
have like a subscription.
Exactly.
And they have
A
international.
subscription. Yeah, I was honestly, yeah. Let's plug in Tubi. Maybe they
I know,
can
right?
sponsor you or
Sponsor.
something. That'd be dope. But because they have dope stuff, right? Like, I feel like I there's like a like ongoing joke I think on social media where it's like Tubi's like better than
I
Netflix
mean,
and like all these other ones. I'm like, I agree. Like they have better selection,
yeah,
honestly. Like
whoever's program.
Netflix does not have selection.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, right.
they're doing a good job.
Yeah, because they have a lot of indie. They have a lot of indie films on there that I've seen, like, or even like, or Tubi
Uh-huh.
originals, which I think this one's a Tubi original. This Slay one,
Oh,
I don't know if it got
okay.
like, but it's an indie filmmaker that I want to try to see maybe I can get her
Yeah.
on the podcast. That'd be
Oh
dope
my
because
gosh, yes.
I was like, oh, this is really cool, like a cool concept, and then you could tell she's like either she or I think she might have I think she directed and wrote it. I can't remember her name. I think it was like Jem
Mhm.
Gerard or something. I might be butchering her name, but I thought it was dope because there's like little things in there where they talk about
Uh-huh.
vampire movies, and I was like, okay, this person's like a horror
Yeah.
fan. Like you could tell because they know like they're vampire movies. So I
Oh
recommend it
my
if you're
God.
into you say you're into vampires, you'll dig it.
I'm watching it. Done. This is what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
uh, and actually, that leads to one of my questions too, because I always like to ask, like, what's your top like five like horror films? I know for me it always changes, but like, what would be your top five like
Okay.
today?
So my top five, I really love Possession. That's like, but I guess that's like sci-fi
Okay,
horror-esque.
yeah,
Um,
it's still horror.
yeah, I love how we like, oh my gosh, watching that on the big screen, it's like very different than watching it on a little screen, but it like the level of just like madness that goes into that is like spectacular. And I just recently watched Man, and I realized this is now added to my list of like favorite horror. And I because it's so beautiful and just weird and like
Yeah.
it's very exploitation, but also very sweet at the same time. I love it. That's one I really like. And then I really enjoy Love Witch. And that one also, as you can see, they all have like an
Okay.
aesthetic to them. So like they have like a very
Yeah.
particular way. And I really love that one because
Yeah.
the filmmaker did an amazing job at replicating the visuals of the 70s and making it in like the 2000s. And that's incredible and
Yeah.
very like she was able to replicate the lenses, like the technical elements of it is just like fantastic. Um, what are some other ones that I really
She was actually at WonderCon. She was in a panel. They had like a women's panel, like breaking through Hollywood. It was cool. She was there. Yeah.
wrote the book like something Bluebeard, some Blackbeard.
Yeah, she was selling it. I think she was like signing them or something like
I'm like
those.
I'm excited.
Yeah, the copies. But I like what she said though because they asked her like why did you want to do like a 70s because like I said like yeah the aesthetic of it like looks like literally like it was filmed in the 70s but they asked her she's like I just like that like back in the day like women had more like
Mhm.
autonomy and like they were like more like kind of like they did their own thing, right? Without us having like to like nowadays like they exploit women in some movies, not all movies, but and so she said like I really love that era, and so I wanted to do a film to kind of go back to that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that.
Um,
But just adding to like
yeah, no, I love
for
hearing
your
that.
favorite
I
film.
didn't get to, maybe I did get to watch it with the filmmaker there. They showed that one at a theater, like as a premiere, and I got to see it there for the
Okay.
first time. I'm a big fan of Kiss of the Dam. Is like a,
Okay.
I think it's these, oh, Xan Cassavetes. I'm really bad at remembering the name of filmmakers. That one's beautiful and also has like kind of like the whole like maybe like a my secret emo 2000s is like is being reflected in the movies I
Yeah.
love. Um, and
Yeah.
let's see what other one that I really love. I think those are my top ones that I the aesthetic to them.
Okay.
I think Black Christmas is definitely like high, like up there. I think the main actress is
Yeah, I love
incredible
that one.
and like I like in love with her. It's like such a
Yeah.
feminist film too because like they're talking about like abortion, they're talking about
Yeah.
um like continue like it's
She's
just going against the grain of everything that was like in that era, you know. I enjoy.
that's true.
Um and then this is gonna
Yeah, was it Margot Kidder?
yeah,
She's funny.
yeah. Uh Jennifer's Body. I know that one's like silly, but I
Oh, okay.
like love Jennifer's Body. First one's in the movie theater. Oh, okay, it's gonna be like a boy, like you know, a guy's film or whatever, like because that's the way it was not
Yeah.
like whoever did the like advertising for this did a horrible job because it was not it just like made it sound like it's like this like sexy woman and like you know like a revenge film.
Like a man eater
Yeah,
supposedly,
yeah,
but it's
but
not.
she's literally a man eater.
Yeah, it's not.
Which is
Yeah.
so interesting. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
think I love that film and
That's cool though. I like hearing everybody's top five or top, like what because I it's cool like to see everybody how there's so much subgenres
hmm
that is like it's hard like for me like I love a lot of the subgenres too and it's hard like people ask me like
hmm
what's yours and it changes. You probably watch every episode and you'll see like I name different ones or sometimes it's the same one, but
no,
it's
because
like
it
it change
changed because
constantly changes because there's so many
yeah,
subgenres.
it's hard because I mean I'm telling you like
Yeah.
my favorite as in like the ones that make my soul feel happy, but then I have other favorites, you know,
Yeah.
like I love
Yeah.
I love like is like 70s and 60s horror. Like I'm in, I love it. And then when I want to go camp, the
Yeah.
80s are great. Then like anything before
Yeah.
99, I'm like into like the later like 2020s. Um, but yeah, like I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's fair to change your favorite movies because I could tell you like all the movies I love, but like those are like the top ones
Yeah.
where I'm like, ah, these ones.
Yeah.
But I have
Yeah.
other ones that are really dumb and are like silly, and I love the
Yeah.
anthologies of all the like you know, Tales from the Hood.
Yeah.
I love all the like Danny Trejo like or
Oh
like
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know the
Oh, the B horror
yeah,
movies.
yeah. Like like B horror is like what makes you feel happy, and it's like when you're having that day, you put like one of
Right.
those on. You put on like I don't know, like Trick or Treat, and you're like ah, their head.
Oh
This
yeah.
is very like I don't know,
Yeah.
makes your day. Um, but yeah, I guess there it's a complex answer to give, but those are the top
Okay.
ones.
No, it's fine. I will always have like a tough time too, like trying to figure out which are my top. And then just to kind of end it, usually like I like to end it with this question is like, what kind of legacy would you like to leave behind, either like on a personal level or creatively?
Mhm. Well, I think part of my like my hopes for a legacy is really just making an impact in the world. Um, you know, through film, uh, through showcasing you know, the conservation and preservation of these titles, which most people will probably put aside and think they're not very important, but because of the times that they were created, it. They just like important part of history, and so I'm really interested in preservation and conservation and showing films in these spaces helps continue being able to do things like, even if they like, Shout Factory does all these new 4K restoration of things, and or Screen Factory, both, and how do you get funding for showing the movies, showcasing them in different places? And I guess like my legacy is like wanting to have really been able to expose like the community and culture to as many as I have a niece and a nephew who are 13 and 9 years old, and I feel like when I do this, I hope that I'm creating a platform through which when they'll not only be able to have access to these movies and be able to enjoy them, but also know that they haven't been lost in time, and there's people who really care about these films, and they're going out of their way to finding if there's like the only VHS that there is out there, and at least digitizing it, or like I was very lucky that at one of my screenings, I showed, I can only say some things, and just because of like the company that I work for, but I will say that like that because I showed a movie at one of my screenings, 22 at the Arrow Theater, because I showed it there, it's now being screened in other places, and this
That's awesome.
movie had only gotten like a very short run in the 70s, and the person who made the film, or one of the producers who's like in their 90s, or 70s, sorry, in their 70s, like screen in like the best way possible.
That's awesome.
And there's something so satisfying about seeing like the faces of the people who worked hard in making these things, and mission, because the audience just maybe wasn't there yet at that time, and being sure like I want to be propel their legacy and make sure that their history is known and remembered, so that can have that, and hopefully they could continue that on, and setting them up with the resource knowledge of like, these are the movies that we're watching, that we're like screening, and just bringing them this, like with Femtasia, is like leaving behind a legacy of conservation, preservation, making sure that these voices are heard, that filmmakers are able to have a platform to show their films, so that they could get eventual distribution, so they could get on that streaming deal, so they could go on to that theatrical release. Because sometimes, as an artist myself, as a filmmaker, I know all you need is opportunity, and if we could give that, we are as a film festival, to have give them the confidence to be able to put those their resume, to be able to continue making media, and succeed in their dream career, just helping others fulfill their dreams, and that's fulfilling for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think you're doing a great job. And I think like when you were talking and saying all that, I feel like for us, like the generation of my grandma, I feel like the storytelling, like actually telling like verbal stories, right, was like the way to tell stories. And like I feel like for us, our modern way is film. And so like it's really important, because like back then, obviously, like sometimes I wish, I'm like, man, I should have wrote all the stuff that my grandma used to tell me, like the legends, because like you said, the preserving of those stories that will never get told again, just because they lose the audience, or they forget about it. And so I feel like film is kind of like the same thing for our generation and generations after us. And so it's really important. Like I love that you guys are doing this, like the Trash Mexes, like all these other different places where you guys are like giving limelight to these films that might have never seen, like I said, like the big screen, or like in restoring them, or showing them, and then showing it to somebody like maybe a younger kid, and they might like, oh, I didn't even know this film existed, and then just kind of like you said, keeping that going. And so that's really awesome. And like I said again, I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for everything that you are doing. Like I'm pretty sure you hear from other people as well, like that you've had on your film festival, or maybe that just go to your film festival as well. And so just want to say that you're doing an awesome job, and it's really dope to see what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for having me here, and also just the fact that you're having this podcast and you're kind of from people, whether music or film or horror and whatnot. I think it's important to have these kind of forms, because you're going to having a discourse and a conversation about how things are made, the like different people's you're bringing oral histories with your grandma.
That's
while
true.
you weren't able to document it, you're now documenting oral histories, in this way, and then it's being
Yeah.
available for other people to be able to pass it down. So I think it's important as well what you're doing. So thank you so much for having.
You're welcome. And this was really fun. And then just want to thank everybody who tuned in today. It was a really dope episode. And then I'll share links and all that for Edda and her Femtasia Fest, so that way if anybody wants to attend any events here in San Diego, or if you're in the LA area, you can check her out. And thank you guys for tuning in today.
Thank you.